Notes 4B, correlation versus causation. Objective, I can compare and contrast association and causation in real-world situations. Essential question, what methods can be used to determine the strength or weakness of an association? Consider this on this slide here. There's more ice cream and there's more sunburns. Now, when more people get ice cream, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get a sunburn. And if you get a sunburn, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have ice cream with you. So that's just a correlation. There's a hidden variable here. It's the dry, hot, and sunny summer weather. That's the causation. The heat. The heat is the hidden variable. The heat will cause them to want more ice cream and to get sunburns. Association, correlation. The relationship between a set of data with two variables. Example 1, below freezing temperatures on a cold day and falling snow. Example 2, the amount of dog food a person buys in 1 month and the size of their dog. Example 3, height and weight. Causation, a correlation that has a direct cause and effect. It will affect it at 100% of the time. If you use the word because of to connect two phrases, the correlation is also causation. Example, the amount of dog food a person buys in 1 month and the size of their dog. Note, every causation is a correlation, but not every correlation is a causation. We can think of causations being squares and correlations being a rectangle. Ways to know the difference between X and Y. Here's the standard table setups. We have X on the left side, Y on the right, or we have X on top and Y on the bottom. Those are the two standard ways to set up tables, where the independent variable is on the left and the dependent variable is on the right. Independence at the top, dependence at the bottom. Remember, the Y values, the dependent variables, are responsive. The X values, the independent variables, are manipulative. The independent variables are what you usually can control. The dependent variables is what happens when you put those controls in. So remember, domain goes with X, independent variables input value, X. The range is the Y values dependent variable output value, f of X. Dr. XY left his ID in his office. That's a phrase you could say to remember this distinction here. So DR, domain range. XY, XY. Left his ID, so I and then D, and then in his office. N would be input, office, output. So remember, domain, range, X, Y, independent, dependent, input, horizontal, inside, output, vertical, outside. Since X and Y are two variables, they are bivariate variables. Okay, so now let's look at some of these correlation examples and determine if they are causation or just association. The time you exercise and the amount of calories you burn is a causation. Is that true or false? This would be true. If you exercise longer at that same amount of intensity, you will burn more calories. So more exercise, more calories. That's positive because it's increase. So this is a positive correlation. The number of your siblings and the grade you make is a causation. No, that would be false. Although the number of siblings you have and the grade you make, could be the more siblings. What do you think it would be? Would it be a higher grade or a lower grade, or do you think that would not affect it at all? Write that on your paper, your notes. Be sure to justify your answers. The number of miles driven, and there is a number of hours a person has driven, is a causation. We're going to assume that the person drove a constant amount of, like their speed was constant. So that would be true. So if you drive more miles at, let's just say 60 miles an hour, that would be more time. So those are both more, it's both increases, so that's positive. The number of years a person went to school and their income. Is that causation, true or false? Write your justification on your notes page and choose the option that you think it is. Let's see. More school has been correlated with more income. So do you think that's a causation or association? The memory available and the number of songs downloaded on your phone. Is that causation? True or false? Choose an answer on the Pear Deck slide and write your justification on your notes page. So more memory is going to be less songs, or at least less song time. So that's a negative correlation. Again, tell me which one it is. Is it a causation or just an association? And why? The average speed a car travels from New York to Texas and the average amount of time it takes. Is that causation or an association? Justify your answer. If it goes faster, it's going to be less time. Is that because of or just in relation to? The number of ice creams consumed on the beach and the number of people robbing a bank. Is that causation? True or false? More ice cream, more robberies. What kind of correlation would that be? Well, you're justifying your answer If you find any of these being association, your justification could be the hidden variable. And your justification for causation would be to be able to define a cause and effect. So how well do you understand what we just covered? Can you explain it to others? Are you not quite sure yet? Choose an option. And on the last slide, create your own example of causation.